On the surface, Iron Ridge was just another quiet desert town, stubbornly independent, weathered by time, and forgotten by the rest of the world. Its people lived simple lives, bound by the land and each other. But beneath that tranquility, a storm was brewing, one that would pit a ruthless cartel against a community determined to survive. For years, the Scorpions cartel expanded unchecked, using fear and violence to claim control of towns along the border. When they reached Iron Ridge, they expected another easy victory. They didn't expect Jack Turner, a former Special Forces soldier seeking peace after a lifetime of conflict, nor did they expect Blitz and Rusty, two highly trained K-9s, to become more than mere protectors of sheep but symbols of a town's unbreakable resolve. The cartel's arrival sparked a deadly game of cat and mouse. Jack and the people of Iron Ridge fought not just for survival, but for freedom. Every trap they set, every move they made was a message to the Scorpions. You do not own us. But Alejandro Cruz, the cartel's leader, wasn't about to retreat without a fight. Reinforcements were called, alliances were tested, and the stakes grew higher with every passing day. Psychological warfare, sabotage, and full-scale assaults transformed the peaceful desert into a battlefield. Yet, in the face of overwhelming odds, the people of Iron Ridge refused to fall. This is the story of a town that dared to defy fear. It is the story of tactical brilliance, unlikely alliances, and a battle fought not just with weapons, but with courage and unity. As the cartel closes in, the lines between life and death blur, and only one question remains. Who will rise, and who will fall in the fight for Iron Ridge? Turn the page and discover the moment when ordinary people chose to become something extraordinary. The desert remembers. Jack Turner had always preferred solitude. The quiet of his ranch in Iron Ridge, nestled near the Texas border, gave him peace from a past he wanted to forget. The man who once led a highly classified special recon military unit had traded the chaos of battle for the simplicity of tending sheep. For 5 years, he had lived this way, hidden in plain sight, blending in with the rugged land. His only companions were his dogs, Blitz, a German shepherd with sharp instincts, and Rusty, a playful but loyal sheepdog who patrolled the ranch's fields. To anyone passing by, they were nothing more than ordinary animals. But Jack knew better. Blitz, or K3, wasn't just a dog. He was a military asset, a K9 veteran with more than 100 missions under his collar. The bond between Jack and K3 had been forged in the fire of war, through battles that had left scars both visible and unseen. Together, they had survived ambushes, explosive traps, and betrayals. Jack had once promised K3 they would never have to fight again. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. That night began like any other. The desert sky stretched endlessly above, glittering with stars. Jack stood on his porch, sipping a mug of coffee as Blitz and Rusty roamed the property. Blitz was always alert, his ears constantly scanning for sounds the human ear couldn't detect. Rusty, on the other hand, barked playfully as he chased after sheep near the southern fence line. Jack smiled faintly, savoring the tranquility. He didn't know it would be shattered before dawn. The Scorpions cartel had been expanding their operations along the Texas border for years. Led by Alejandro Cruz, a ruthless figure known for his ambition, the cartel controlled vast smuggling routes for drugs and weapons. Recently, they had encountered problems near Iron Ridge. Border patrols seemed to show up faster than usual, and scouts reported strange activity around one particular ranch. Alejandro dismissed it at first. What could one sheep farmer possibly do? His men were hardened criminals with years of experience moving product undetected. Surely, this was a coincidence. That assumption would prove fatal. 2 scouts crept along the edge of Jack's property that night. Armed with cameras and night vision goggles, they observed from the brush, recording the dogs as they patrolled. One of the scouts muttered under his breath, "Boss says we need to deal with that collie. It's too good at spotting our men." "Maybe take both dogs," the other whispered. "A message might get the farmer to back off." Unaware of the storm they were about to unleash, the scouts retreated, leaving plans in motion for the following night. The next evening, Jack's instincts tingled with unease. He noticed small signs: a sheep fence tampered with, fresh tracks near the southern boundary. Rusty barked anxiously as Blitz circled the property, his tail stiff and ears upright. Jack trusted Blitz's senses more than anything. If something was wrong, the dog would know. Still, the night seemed quiet as he secured the animals for the evening. At midnight, the attack came. 5 cartel enforcers slipped through the fence with tranquilizer darts and silenced rifles. Their mission was simple: capture the dogs and leave no trace. Rusty, always more curious than cautious, was the first to approach the intruders. A dart hit him in the shoulder before he could bark. He staggered and collapsed as Blitz charged toward the men. Blitz managed to evade the first dart, taking down one of the enforcers with a swift, precise strike to the leg. But the second shot hit home. The German shepherd stumbled, fighting to stay conscious, before his body went limp. The cartel operatives dragged Blitz to a waiting SUV, unaware that they had just kidnapped one of the deadliest assets in Special Forces history. When Jack awoke to the sound of silence, no barking, no patrols, he knew something was wrong. He raced to the southern fence and found Rusty lying groggily in the dirt. The sheepdog was alive but disoriented. Blitz, however, was gone. Jack's eyes narrowed as he scanned the scene. He found tire tracks, cigarette butts, and the faint imprint of boots in the dirt. Scouts. Amateurs. They had left more than enough evidence for someone like Jack to track them. His calm exterior cracked for a moment as anger surged within him. They had taken Blitz, his partner, his brother-in-arms. Whoever they were, they had no idea what they had just provoked. Jack wasted no time. He unlocked a case in his study, one he hadn't touched in years. Inside lay encrypted phones, maps, tactical gear, and weapons he had sworn he would never use again. He donned a combat vest, feeling the familiar weight settle across his shoulders. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a declaration of war. By dawn, Jack had identified the cartel compound's general location through satellite imagery and intercepted radio chatter. He also called in a favor from an old contact, Alex Ramirez, a border patrol supervisor. Alex had heard rumors about increased cartel activity near Santa Rosa, a known staging ground for smuggling operations. "You sure about this, Jack?" Alex asked over the secure line. "If you go after them, you know they'll retaliate." "They already made their move," Jack replied coldly. "Now it's my turn." Meanwhile, at the Scorpion's compound, Alejandro Cruz inspected his new prize. Blitz sat silently in a makeshift kennel, his eyes tracking every movement. One of the guards chuckled. "He's just a sheepdog. What's the big deal?" Dante Vargas, Cruz's second-in-command, frowned. "Doesn't act like any sheepdog I've seen. Almost like he's watching us." "You worry too much," Cruz dismissed the concern. "The farmer will learn his lesson soon enough. We'll send the dog back piece by piece if he resists." But Blitz had no intention of waiting for rescue. His training was far superior to anything the cartel could imagine. Over the next few days, he observed guard rotations, memorized blind spots in the security cameras, and assessed weak points in the compound's defenses. Every moment brought him closer to escape. Back at the ranch, Jack finalized his plan. He knew he couldn't fight the cartel alone, not without risking innocent lives. He reached out to trusted neighbors, including Emma Collins, and explained the situation. Though skeptical at first, the community soon rallied behind him. They knew what was at stake. If the cartel could take Jack's dog today, they could take their homes tomorrow. The Scorpions thought they were dealing with a lone farmer. They were wrong. Jack Turner wasn't just a man defending his property. He was a soldier reclaiming his mission, and this time, he wasn't fighting alone. Blitz had sent a message through silence and observation. Now it was Jack's turn to respond with fire and precision. The battle for Iron Ridge had just begun. Jack Turner had never been the kind of man to back down, especially not when someone threatened his family. For Jack, Blitz was more than just a dog. He was a partner who had saved his life countless times. Now, with Blitz taken, Jack's focus sharpened. Every lesson he had learned in war surged to the forefront of his mind. Iron Ridge would soon learn why Jack Turner had once been called the Ghost. By mid-morning, Jack had gathered every clue left behind. The boot tracks, tire imprints, and scattered cigarette butts painted a clear picture of where the kidnappers had come from and how they had left. The tracks pointed south, toward Santa Rosa, an area known to be under cartel control. It wasn't just the cartel's influence that worried Jack. Santa Rosa was a maze of hidden routes and fortified compounds. Without the element of surprise, any attempt to storm their stronghold would be suicide. But Jack wasn't going in blind. He had 20 years of tactical experience and the knowledge that Blitz was still alive. Blitz wouldn't be lying low. Jack had trained him for situations like this. Situations where the dog might be separated from his handler and need to act independently. If Blitz was doing what Jack expected, the German Shepherd was already mapping the enemy's weaknesses. Before Jack could go any further, he knew he had to bring in allies, at least on a need-to-know basis. He made his first call to Alex Ramirez, the Border Patrol supervisor he trusted most. Alex was a no-nonsense veteran who had worked the border long enough to understand the cartel's tactics. "Jack, I thought you were out of the game," Alex said when he answered the encrypted line. "I was," Jack replied, "but someone just brought me back in. I need intel, everything you've got on the Scorpions' activity near Santa Rosa." There was a pause before Alex responded. "You sure you want to go after them?" "Cruz doesn't mess around, Jack. They've got heavy weapons, scouts everywhere, and half the local authorities in their pocket." Jack's voice remained steady. "They took Blitz. I'm not letting them walk away from that." "All right, I'll send you what I have. Just don't do anything crazy. We're already stretched thin down here." "I won't go in blind," Jack assured him. "But when the time comes, I'll make sure they know exactly who they're dealing with." Meanwhile, at the Scorpions' compound, Blitz was quietly gathering information. The guards underestimated him, treating him like a trophy rather than a threat. They didn't know that every minute Blitz spent observing their patrol routes, camera placements, and weapon storage areas brought him closer to freedom. Dante Vargas, Cruz's second-in-command, was the only one who sensed something was off. As he watched Blitz from a distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that the dog was more than he appeared. "There's something about that animal," Dante muttered to one of the guards. "You ever seen a dog stay that calm in a place like this?" The guard shrugged. "Maybe he's just dumb. I mean, he didn't even try to run when we grabbed him." Dante frowned. "Or maybe he's smarter than all of us put together." Despite his concerns, Dante kept his suspicions to himself. Cruz wouldn't listen to vague worries about a dog, and in the Scorpions, voicing doubts was a good way to get yourself replaced, permanently. Back at the ranch, Jack prepared for the next phase of his plan. He wasn't going to storm the compound just yet. First, he needed to test the waters and see how far the cartel's reach extended. He drove into town and met with Emma Collins, a longtime friend who had always been deeply involved in the community. Emma ran the local schoolhouse and had her finger on the pulse of Iron Ridge. If anyone knew who had been asking questions or causing trouble in the area, it would be her. "Jack," Emma greeted him with a curious smile as he stepped out of his truck. "You're not one for surprise visits. What's going on?" "I need your help, Emma," Jack said, cutting straight to the point. "The Scorpions took Blitz." Emma's eyes widened in shock. "What? Why would they take your dog?" "They probably think it's just about sending a message," Jack explained. "But they have no idea what they've walked into." Emma nodded, her expression hardening. "So, what do you need from me?" "I need to know if anyone in town has seen or heard anything unusual. Suspicious vehicles, strangers asking questions. Anything that could point to cartel activity." Emma thought for a moment, then said, "Walter Shepherd mentioned something a few days ago. Said he saw some SUVs parked near the old highway, just past the southern fence line of your property. Thought it was strange, but didn't think much of it at the time." "That's a start," Jack said. "If you hear anything else, let me know. And be careful, Emma. These people aren't playing games." Emma placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Neither are we. You know the people here will back you up if it comes to that." Over the next few days, Jack quietly rallied his neighbors. Walter, Emma, and a handful of other ranchers agreed to join a defensive network. Jack didn't need them to fight, at least not yet. For now, he focused on training them in surveillance, communications, and how to recognize cartel movements without drawing attention. As Jack worked with his neighbors, Blitz continued to execute his own escape plan. He waited until the guards became complacent, then began feigning illness. When a guard finally entered the kennel to check on him, Blitz sprang into action. In a blur of movement, He knocked the man to the ground, slipped through the open gate, and disappeared into the night. By the time the cartel realized he was gone, it was too late. Blitz was already miles away, using his training to evade pursuers and navigate the desert terrain. Blitz's escape through the compound into chaos. Cruz was enraged when he heard the news. "Find that dog," he roared, "and find the farmer. I want both of them brought to me, alive or dead. I don't care which." Dante Vargas, however, saw the bigger picture. If the dog got out, that means the farmer trained him well. "This isn't going to end the way you think, Cruz. We need to prepare for a fight." Cruz sneered. "A fight? Against a farmer? Don't make me laugh, Dante. We have men, weapons, and resources." "What does he have?" Dante met Cruz's gaze with a grim expression. "He has experience, and a reason to come after us." The next morning, Jack found Blitz limping but alive near the northern boundary of his ranch. Relief washed over him as he knelt beside the dog, checking for injuries. Blitz wagged his tail weakly, his eyes still alert. "Good boy," Jack murmured. "You did it. You made it back." With Blitz safely home, Jack knew the time for reconnaissance was over. The Scorpions had declared war on Iron Ridge, and Jack Turner was ready to answer the call. The ghost of his past had been awakened, and the cartel was about to learn just how dangerous that ghost could be. Jack Turner knew one thing for certain. He couldn't take on the cartel alone. While he was capable of covert operations and guerrilla tactics, the Scorpions cartel had an army of enforcers, informants, and a network that extended across the entire border region. For Jack to win, he needed more than just skill. He needed a united community, people who were willing to protect their families and homes. He needed Iron Ridge to become a fortress built on trust, vigilance, and solidarity. After Blitz's return, word spread quickly among the ranchers and townsfolk. Many didn't know the full details of what had happened, but rumors circulated: cartel scouts, missing dogs, and Jack preparing for a fight. Walter Shepard was the first to visit the ranch. Walter had run cattle on the outskirts of Iron Ridge for years and was no stranger to cartel intimidation. "They've been pushing folks off land closer to the south," Walter explained, leaning on the hood of his truck. 3 ranches shut down just this year. Same tactics. First, they send scouts to test defenses. Then the threats start. People either leave or, well, worse things happen. Jack crossed his arms, listening intently. "They try to test my defenses, too. Now they know I'm not leaving." Walter nodded slowly. "Problem is, Jack, once you stand up to them, they'll send more than just a few scouts. This isn't just about you. If you're going to fight, the whole town's going to feel it. You know that, right?" "That's why I'm talking to you," Jack replied. "We can't afford to fight this battle alone. We need to coordinate. I'm not asking anyone to take up arms, but I am asking for eyes, ears, and cooperation. If they hit one of us, they hit all of us." Walter studied Jack for a moment, then grinned. "Hell, I'm in. Long overdue for someone to stand up to those bastards anyway." That evening, Jack called a meeting at Emma Collins' schoolhouse. It was a place where the community gathered during emergencies, floods, droughts, and wildfires, but tonight's meeting carried a different weight. Nearly 20 ranchers, farmers, and small business owners arrived, many of them with serious expressions. Jack stood at the front, with Emma at his side and Blitz lying alert at his feet. "Thank you all for coming," Jack began, his voice steady and direct. "I know there have been rumors about what's happening on my ranch. I'm here to set the record straight. The Scorpions cartel took my dog a few nights ago. They thought it would scare me into backing off. They were wrong." Murmurs spread across the room. Some people exchanged nervous glances, but others, like Walter, nodded in quiet agreement. "This isn't just about me," Jack continued. "They've been pushing north for years, taking land, forcing people out. If we don't stop them here, Iron Ridge won't be safe anymore. I can't do this alone. I need your help." A man in the back, Mason Clark, raised his hand. "Jack, you're talking about going up against a cartel. You think a bunch of ranchers can handle that?" Jack met his gaze without flinching. "We're not going to fight them head-on. That's suicide. What we can do is build a network, surveillance, communications, and defenses. If we're organized, they won't be able to move through this area without us knowing." Emma stepped forward. Jack's right. We've already seen what they can do to towns that give in. But if we stand together, we can make Iron Ridge a place they don't want to mess with. The room fell into thoughtful silence. Finally, Mason nodded. All right, I'm in. But if this blows up, we better be ready for the worst. Over the next few days, Jack divided the community into teams. Walter and Mason led patrols along the outskirts of town, keeping an eye on potential entry points the cartel might use. Emma coordinated a communication network, ensuring that radios and phones were operational across all properties. Jack also began training volunteers in situational awareness, how to spot suspicious activity without putting themselves at risk. But perhaps the most crucial part of the plan was the dogs. Jack knew that surveillance would be key, and for that, they needed canine support. Blitz and Rusty, along with other ranch dogs, became central to the defensive strategy. Jack and Blitz demonstrated how dogs could be trained to detect intruders, track scents, and even create diversions. During one training session, Jack showed how Blitz could silently signal the presence of a threat by shifting his posture and making subtle ear movements. Dogs like Blitz don't just bark at danger, Jack explained to the group. They observe, track, and alert without giving away their position. With the right training, your dogs can do the same. Walter chuckled. Hell, I thought my old dog was only good for chasing coyotes. Guess he's about to get a promotion. As the training continued, Jack received updates from Alex Ramirez. The cartel was mobilizing more men and resources. Crews had issued orders to escalate operations in Iron Ridge, frustrated by their recent setbacks. Jack knew it was only a matter of time before the next confrontation. Meanwhile, Dante Vargas had been tasked with coordinating the cartel's next move. Unlike Cruz, Dante understood the gravity of the situation. He had researched Jack's background, uncovering fragments of classified military records. What little he found painted a picture of a highly skilled operative, someone who was used to winning asymmetric wars. This isn't just a farmer, Dante warned Cruz during a meeting. He's former special forces. If we keep underestimating him, we're going to lose more than just territory. Cruz scoffed. I don't care what his background is. We'll crush him. Send a message. Burn one of their ranches if you have to. Dante clenched his jaw but followed orders. He knew that Cruz's arrogance would be their undoing. The cartel's next attack came under the cover of darkness. 2 trucks filled with armed enforcers approached Walter Shepard's property, intending to set fire to his barns. What they didn't know was that Jack had anticipated the move. Surveillance teams had spotted the trucks hours earlier, allowing Jack and his team to prepare a countermeasure. As the cartel operatives moved into position, Blitz and Rusty led a group of trained dogs in a stealth maneuver, quietly herding the attackers into a blind spot near a canyon ridge. Jack and Walter, stationed above, waited until the enforcers were fully exposed before activating floodlights. Drop your weapons. Jack's voice echoed through the canyon. Panicked, the cartel men scrambled, but they were surrounded. The sight of dogs silently advancing on their position unnerved them more than the floodlights. Within minutes, the attackers surrendered, realizing they had walked into a trap. Walter grinned as he tied one of the enforcers' hands behind his back. Welcome to Iron Ridge. Hope you enjoy your stay. The successful defense sent shockwaves through both the cartel and the community. For the first time in years, the people of Iron Ridge felt empowered. They weren't just victims waiting for help, they were actively protecting their land. Emma organized a town meeting to celebrate the victory, but Jack reminded everyone that the fight wasn't over. This was just the beginning, he said. They'll come back, and they'll come harder. But if we keep working together, we can hold the line. The townsfolk nodded in agreement. Iron Ridge was no longer a collection of isolated ranches. It was becoming something stronger, a community united by a shared purpose. At the cartel compound, Cruz seethed with rage. How the hell did they stop us? He demanded. Dante remained calm. They're organized. This isn't just luck. Turner's building a defense network. Cruz slammed his fist on the table. Then we'll burn the whole town to the ground if that's what it takes. Dante, however, knew better. Jack Turner wasn't going to be defeated through brute force. If the cartel wanted to win, they would need a new strategy. But deep down, Dante suspected that no strategy would be enough. The ghost haunting Iron Ridge had been awakened. and ghosts were notoriously hard to kill. The Scorpions cartel was regrouping after their failed attempt to intimidate Iron Ridge. Alejandro Cruz was humiliated, but his wounded pride only fueled his determination. He had underestimated Jack Turner and the townspeople, a mistake he vowed not to repeat. Cruz ordered more enforcers, bringing in heavier firepower and tactical experts to escalate their presence in the region. This time, he planned to crush Iron Ridge with overwhelming force. But what Cruz didn't know was that Jack had already anticipated this. Jack's mind worked like a tactician preparing for war. He had learned to survive by being 5 steps ahead of his enemy. The cartel thought they were about to unleash hell on the town. In reality, they were about to walk into a battlefield meticulously designed to turn their strength into a liability. Jack stood at the edge of his property, watching the sun rise over the vast desert landscape. The ground beneath him held more than just dust and dirt. Beneath Iron Ridge, a system of interconnected tunnels and bunkers had been quietly constructed with the help of the community over the past few weeks. The people had moved from merely defending themselves to preparing for the fight of their lives. Blitz and Rusty were already patrolling the perimeter with several other trained dogs. Jack had divided the community into teams, each with a specific role in the defensive strategy. Some would monitor incoming threats from hidden observation points. Others would control the communications network that Emma had helped establish. Border Patrol agents, led by Alex Ramirez, were on standby, ready to assist if things escalated beyond what the locals could handle. Jack had also coordinated with DEA agent Marcus Kelly, who had become an unofficial ally. Though Kelly couldn't commit federal resources openly, he had sent surveillance drones to monitor cartel movements. Jack and Marcus knew that any direct action from federal authorities would risk exposing the operation and warning the cartel. For now, Iron Ridge was on its own. At the ranch, Walter Shepard arrived with a group of ranchers and business owners. They gathered in Jack's barn, where he laid out maps and tactical plans on a large table. "All right," Jack began, addressing the group. "The Scorpions are bringing reinforcements. This isn't just another raid. They're planning a full-scale assault. We've got maybe a few days before they make their move. If we don't prepare now, we won't get a second chance." The room was tense. Many of the townsfolk had never been in a real firefight, but they trusted Jack. His calm, authoritative demeanor inspired confidence, and the fact that they had successfully defended Walter's property gave them hope. "Where are they going to hit first?" Emma asked. Jack pointed to key locations on the map. "They'll come from multiple directions. Here, here, and here. They'll want to split us up and force us into panic. That's their strategy, control through fear and confusion. But we're not going to give them that opportunity. We're going to make them fight on our terms." He gestured to the map again. "I've set up 3 defensive zones. Each zone is designed to slow them down and funnel their forces into kill zones. We won't be relying on firefights alone. We'll use traps, obstacles, and misdirection to keep them off balance." Walter chuckled. "You mean like those spike strips you hit on the canyon trail?" "Exactly," Jack replied. "We're not looking to fight a prolonged battle. This is about wearing them down piece by piece. We're going to make every step they take costly." Marcus stepped forward with new intel. "We've confirmed their staging areas. They're setting up just outside Santa Rosa. Looks like they've got armored SUVs, military-grade weapons, and even some drones." "Perfect," Jack said without missing a beat. "The more hardware they bring, the harder it'll be for them to retreat once they're in the trap." Emma frowned. "Jack, I know you've thought this through, but what if something goes wrong? What if they break through the defenses?" Jack met her gaze steadily. "Then we fall back to the command bunker. The tunnels are reinforced and interconnected. They'll have to search building by building to find us. And by the time they do, we'll already be hitting them from a different angle." The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Jack wasn't just preparing for a skirmish. He was orchestrating a full-scale defensive campaign. This wasn't about survival anymore. It was about ensuring that Iron Ridge would never fall under cartel control. While the townsfolk prepared for battle, the Scorpions were finalizing their plans. Alejandro Cruz arrived at their main compound in a convoy of armored vehicles. Dante Vargas greeted him with a grim expression. "Everything's in place," Dante reported. "We've got 3 strike teams ready to deploy. Each team has heavy weapons and enough men to take out a small town. Cruz smiled coldly. Good. Turner and his little army of farmers won't know what hit them. Dante hesitated. We should be careful, Alejandro. Turner's not just some local with a grudge. He's a professional. He's been anticipating our moves. You're scared of one man? Cruz sneered. I'm cautious, Dante corrected. Underestimating him is what got us into this mess in the first place. Cruz waved him off. Enough. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. I want Iron Ridge turned to ash by the end of the week. 2 nights before the attack, Jack and his team conducted their final preparations. Blitz and K3 led reconnaissance patrols, silently weaving through the desert landscape. Jack crouched on a ridge overlooking one of the cartel's staging areas, his night vision goggles giving him a clear view of their activities. He noted the number of vehicles, guard rotations, and entry points. Every detail mattered. Blitz growled softly, signaling movement near the compound entrance. Jack lowered his goggles and watched as Dante Vargas stepped out of a command tent, speaking with several lieutenants. Jack couldn't hear the conversation, but he could see the tension in Dante's posture. It was clear that not everyone on the cartel side was confident about the operation. They're nervous, Jack whispered to Blitz. Good. Let's keep it that way. The morning of the attack arrived with an eerie stillness. Jack stood on his porch, scanning the horizon. He could feel the tension in the air, like the calm before a storm. Blitz and Rusty sat at attention beside him, their ears perked for any sign of movement. Emma drove up in her truck, carrying supplies for the bunker. This is it, huh? She asked as she stepped out. Jack nodded. It's time. Throughout the town, families took shelter in the underground tunnels. Volunteers manned observation posts, while others monitored radio channels for updates. Jack gave final instructions to his team. Remember, stick to the plan. Don't engage unless absolutely necessary. We want them to think they're in control right up until the moment we spring the trap. Walter grinned. Let's give him hell. As the cartel convoys rolled into Iron Ridge, they were met with an eerie sight. The town appeared deserted. Windows were boarded up, and there was no sign of life. Cruz's enforcers spread out cautiously, expecting an ambush. Looks like they ran, one lieutenant reported over the radio. Don't be stupid, Dante growled. They're watching us. Stay alert. The convoy continued deeper into the town. They reached the central square, where they began setting up command posts. That's when the first trap activated. Hidden spike strips shredded the tires of 2 armored SUVs, while concealed explosives disabled their communication equipment. Floodlights blazed to life, illuminating the square. Jack's voice echoed through the loudspeakers. Welcome to Iron Ridge. You wanted a fight. Now you've got one. The cartel had walked straight into Jack's trap, and the battle for Iron Ridge had officially begun. The night exploded with chaos as the cartel convoy found themselves trapped in Iron Ridge's central square. Tire spikes disabled their armored SUVs, while floodlights bathed the area in an unrelenting glare. The sound of Jack Turner's voice echoing through loudspeakers unnerved even the most hardened enforcers. Welcome to Iron Ridge, Jack's voice taunted. Did you think you'd walk in and take what you wanted? You've made a mistake you won't live to forget. Cruz's men scrambled to assess the situation. Their communications were disrupted by the hidden jammers Jack had deployed. Confusion spread as orders clashed and gunfire erupted at random. Find those lights, one of the lieutenants barked. Shut them down. Dante Vargas stayed calm, though his instinct screamed danger. He had warned Cruz this would happen. Turner wasn't just a man protecting his land. He was a tactician who thrived on asymmetric warfare. Everything about this trap was designed to confuse, delay, and demoralize the attackers. Dante grabbed a handheld radio and switched to their emergency frequency. All units, regroup near the north entrance. Do not advance until you've confirmed clear paths. We're being funneled into kill zones. But before his orders could be fully executed, the first wave of Jack's counterattack began. Jack, stationed at a concealed observation post near the ridge, watched the chaos unfold through his binoculars. Blitz and Rusty lay beside him, their bodies tense with anticipation. Jack gave a subtle hand signal. and Blitz sprinted off toward one of the flanking positions where a group of ranchers waited with orders to execute Phase 1 of the plan. The ranchers, led by Walter Shepard, activated preset traps hidden around the square. Makeshift barricades, spike strips, and controlled explosives forced the cartel's vehicles into tight choke points. From elevated positions, the defenders used spotlights and sirens to disorient the attackers further. But true to Jack's plan, they avoided unnecessary gunfire, knowing the real battle was psychological. "They're scrambling like rats," Walter reported over the radio. "What's next?" "Phase 2, Jack replied. "Let them think they're gaining ground. Guide them into the false defensive points." Walter grinned. "Copy that. Let's make them feel smart for a minute." Dante led a small group of enforcers through a side street, using the cover of buildings to evade the glaring lights. His instincts told him this wasn't a typical ambush. Turner wasn't relying on direct confrontation. This was a game of misdirection. "Check those rooftops," Dante ordered. "They're watching us." His men swept the area but found nothing except decoy traps meant to waste their time. Dante clenched his jaw. Turner was baiting them, forcing them to overextend and panic. "We need to break out of this pattern," Dante muttered. "Get me a map of the town." One of his lieutenants hesitated. "Sir, Cruz wants us to push straight through to the command post." "Cruz is a damn fool," Dante snapped. "We follow his orders, and we'll all be dead by sunrise. Do as I say." Meanwhile, Alejandro Cruz was losing patience. He stood in the middle of the square, barking orders at his enforcers. His arrogance had blinded him to the reality of the situation. In his mind, the people of Iron Ridge were nothing more than farmers with guns. He refused to believe they could outmaneuver his heavily armed force. "Where the hell are my reinforcements?" Cruz demanded, pacing beside one of the disabled SUVs. "They're pinned down on the South Road," a lieutenant reported. "They hit more traps along the way. We've lost 3 vehicles already." Cruz seethed with rage. "Then blow through the damn buildings if you have to. I want this town flattened." But flattening the town wasn't an option. Jack had fortified key structures, reinforcing walls and placing steel barriers within empty buildings. The cartel's heavy weapons couldn't penetrate the defenses without wasting valuable ammunition. Every time Cruz's men tried to breach a building, they found themselves facing dead ends, blocked escape routes, or sudden counterattacks. Emma Collins monitored the situation from the command bunker beneath the schoolhouse. She relayed updates between Jack, Walter, and Alex Ramirez's Border Patrol team, who were positioned on the outskirts of town. "Jack, they're hitting resistance on all sides," Emma reported. "Walter says the East Road is holding, but they're sending more men toward the northern sector." Jack's voice came through with calm authority. "Good. Let them. We'll activate Phase 3 soon. Tell Walter to maintain his position. No one fires unless absolutely necessary." Emma nodded, even though Jack couldn't see her. She marveled at how composed he remained under pressure. Jack had planned every detail, but that didn't make this any less dangerous. One misstep could result in casualties, and Emma knew that was Jack's greatest fear. "Hang in there, Blitz," she whispered to herself, knowing the dogs were as much a part of the plan as any human defender. Blitz and Rusty led a coordinated maneuver through the tunnel system beneath the town. Their role was critical, maintaining communication between isolated teams and delivering signals to trigger defensive measures. Jack had trained them for this level of precision, and the dogs executed their tasks flawlessly. Blitz emerged from a hidden entrance near the town's northern edge, where Mason Clark's team had set up a sniper nest. The German Shepherd signaled with a sharp bark, alerting the team to incoming hostiles. "They're coming fast," Mason muttered, adjusting his rifle scope. "Looks like Dante's leading this group. He's smarter than the others." "Doesn't matter," another rancher replied. "He still has to follow our rules." Dante's group finally breached what appeared to be a key defensive point, an old grain warehouse near the northern sector. The enforcers moved cautiously, expecting resistance. But the building was eerily quiet. "This feels wrong," Dante said, signaling his men to stop. He scanned the area with a flashlight, noting strange markings on the walls. Before he could piece it together, the lights cut out, and sirens wailed from hidden speakers. "Fall back," Dante shouted, but it was too late. Steel shutters slammed down over the exits, trapping his team inside. Hidden panels opened in the ceiling, releasing clouds of disorienting smoke. "This is Turner's work," Dante growled through gritted teeth. "He's toying with us." Despite the disarray, Dante kept his composure. He guided his team toward an emergency exit they had overlooked during their initial sweep. The door opened onto a narrow alley, but before they could regroup, they heard the sound of growling. Blitz and Rusty emerged from the shadows, their eyes gleaming in the dim light. The sight of the dogs unsettled the enforcers, who instinctively raised their weapons. "Don't fire," Dante ordered. "They're hurting us." The dogs didn't attack. Instead, they moved strategically, forcing the enforcers to retreat toward an ambush point where Jack and his team lay in wait. Jack gave the signal, and a flashbang grenade exploded, disorienting Dante's men. The defenders moved swiftly, incapacitating several enforcers without firing lethal shots. Jack stepped forward, his voice cold and steady. "You're not in control anymore," he told Dante. "Call your men off, or this ends badly for all of you." Dante met Jack's gaze, understanding the gravity of the situation. He wasn't dealing with an ordinary adversary. Jack Turner was a strategist, a man who thrived in the chaos of war. "I can't stop Cruz," Dante admitted. "He'll burn this town to the ground before he backs off." "Let him try," Jack replied. "He won't get the chance." As dawn approached, the cartel's forces were in disarray. Teams trapped in various parts of the town had either surrendered or retreated. Cruz, realizing his attack had failed, ordered a hasty withdrawal. "This isn't over," Cruz hissed as he climbed into one of the remaining SUVs. "We'll come back with everything we have." Jack watched from a distance as the convoy fled. He knew this was only a temporary victory. Cruz would return, but when he did, Iron Ridge would be ready. For now, the town had held its ground. The people of Iron Ridge had proven that they could stand together. And that, Jack knew, was the cartel's greatest fear. Alejandro Cruz had never tasted defeat like this. The retreat from Iron Ridge gnawed at his pride like an open wound. He had underestimated Jack Turner and the people of the town, and now his credibility as a cartel leader was at risk. Rumors were already spreading within his ranks. Stories of how Turner had outmaneuvered them with tactics that made the cartel look foolish. Cruz knew that if he didn't respond decisively, his empire would crumble from within. Dante Vargas, however, had a different perspective. As Cruz's second-in-command, he understood that Turner wasn't just some rancher defending his land. He was a tactical mastermind with extensive military training. Dante had studied Turner's ambushes and traps, and he knew that brute force wouldn't win this fight. Still, Cruz wasn't interested in listening to reason. "We're going back," Cruz declared during a meeting with his lieutenants at the Santa Rosa compound. "This time, we won't play his games. We bring everything: men, weapons, and armor. We'll level Iron Ridge if we have to." Dante spoke cautiously. "If we go in guns blazing without a plan, we'll lose again." Turner is prepared for another direct assault. Cruz glared at him. "So what's your suggestion, Dante? Sit back and let a farmer humiliate us?" "No," Dante replied. "We disrupt his network. We divide the community. Turn their fear against them. If they can't trust each other, their defenses will collapse from within." Cruz considered this for a moment, his rage momentarily tempered by the idea of psychological warfare. "Fine, but if you fail, you'll answer for it personally." At the same time, Jack Turner was reinforcing Iron Ridge's defenses. Though the town had won the first round, Jack knew the cartel wouldn't give up easily. They would return, and when they did, they'd be more dangerous than ever. His strategy now was twofold: fortify the town and maintain the unity that had carried them through the last attack. Jack gathered the town's leaders, Emma Collins, Walter Shepard, Mason Clark, and others, for a strategy meeting at the command bunker. The atmosphere was tense but determined. These people had already proven they could fight, but Jack needed them to prepare for a longer battle of endurance. "We bought ourselves some time," Jack began. "But make no mistake, Cruz isn't finished. He'll hit us harder, and he'll try to turn us against each other. That's how they operate. Fear and division are their real weapons." Walter crossed his arms. "We've seen it before. Rumors, threats, people turning on their neighbors. They're gonna try to break our trust? Emma nodded. So how do we stop that? Jack tapped the map on the table. We tighten communications. No misinformation gets spread without verification. If anyone hears something suspicious, threats, rumors of spies, anything, they report it immediately. We also keep rotating patrols. No one feels isolated. Are we ready if they attack again? Mason asked. Jack looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze. We're ready, but we're not just defending anymore. We're going to take the fight to them, on our terms. Dante Vargas began his plan to destabilize Iron Ridge by sending small teams of cartel operatives into the town under the guise of traveling workers and drifters. Their goal was to sow distrust and paranoia. One operative spread rumors that a local rancher had been bribed to cooperate with the cartel. Another claimed to overhear a federal agent discussing abandoning the town if things escalated. Within days, tensions began to rise. Small arguments broke out between neighbors who had always trusted each other. Jack noticed the shift in morale and knew the cartel's tactics were taking effect. He called an emergency meeting at the schoolhouse to address the growing unrest. The room buzzed with anxiety as people murmured about the rumors. Enough, Jack said firmly, silencing the crowd. I know what's happening. The cartel is trying to divide us. They want us to turn on each other so they can walk in and take over without firing a shot. We can't let that happen. But what if the rumors are true? One rancher asked. How do we know who to trust? You trust your community, Emma interjected. We've fought side by side. Don't let them tear us apart with lies. Jack added, if anyone has concerns, bring them to me or Emma. We verify the facts before we jump to conclusions. That's how we stay strong. The crowd slowly calmed, and the sense of unity began to return. Jack knew it wouldn't be easy to maintain, but this was a battle they had to win. Meanwhile, Blitz and Rusty continued their patrols with the trained teams. Jack had assigned each dog to different sectors of the town, ensuring they could cover more ground. Their presence reassured the townsfolk, who knew that if the dogs detected danger, it wasn't a false alarm. Late one night, Blitz caught the scent of an unfamiliar presence near the northern boundary. Jack, alerted by Blitz's silent signal, moved to intercept. He found a cartel operative attempting to disable one of the town's surveillance cameras. Hands up, Jack ordered, his weapon drawn. The man froze, but Jack could see the defiance in his eyes. You think you can stop the Scorpions? We own this region. Not anymore, Jack replied coldly. Tell Cruz he's losing this war. The operative was taken into custody, but the incident confirmed Jack's suspicions. The cartel was escalating their efforts to infiltrate the town. Dante grew increasingly frustrated. Despite his efforts, Iron Ridge's defenses held firm. The town's unity was stronger than he had anticipated, and Turner's leadership kept the people focused. Dante knew that if they couldn't break Iron Ridge from within, Cruz would resort to all-out violence. I need more time, Dante told Cruz during a tense call. Their defenses are tight, and Turner isn't making mistakes. You're out of time, Cruz snarled. I'm sending reinforcements. We're finishing this. No more games. Dante realized that Cruz's impatience would lead to disaster. He quietly began making his own preparations, knowing he might have to defect if things spiraled out of control. Jack received word from Alex Ramirez that a large convoy was heading north from Santa Rosa. Cruz was committing everything to a final assault. Jack gathered his core team and outlined the next phase of their plan. This is it, Jack said. They're bringing everything they have. We stick to the plan. No deviations. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Walter grinned. Let's show M what Iron Ridge is made of. Emma, ever the voice of caution, added, we have to protect the families. If it gets too dangerous, we evacuate them through the tunnels. Jack nodded. Agreed. But if we hold our ground, Cruz won't have a chance to regroup. As the sun set over Iron Ridge, the town braced for the final confrontation. Patrols took their positions, traps were reset, and the communication network buzzed with readiness reports. Blitz and Rusty led the defense teams, their senses sharp and their training fully activated. The cartel was coming with everything they had, but Iron Ridge was ready. The desert wasn't just a battleground anymore. It was home, and the people who lived there were prepared to defend it with everything they had. This time, the fight wouldn't just be for survival. It would be for victory. The night was deathly still in Iron Ridge. The calm stretched across the desert like a taut wire, ready to snap at any moment. Every defender, from the youngest rancher to the most seasoned fighter, held their position in tense silence. Jack Turner stood at the edge of town, binoculars raised, scanning the horizon for signs of movement. Beside him, Blitz and Rusty remained perfectly still, their eyes fixed on the distant ridgelines. "They're coming," Jack muttered, handing the binoculars to Emma, who had joined him at the lookout post. Emma nodded after spotting the convoy's dust trail in the moonlight. "This is the biggest force they've sent yet. It'll be their last," Jack replied with quiet determination. Alejandro Cruz was in the lead vehicle, flanked by heavily armed enforcers and tactical specialists. He had brought more than 60 men, armored vehicles, and drone support. His orders were clear: burn Iron Ridge to the ground and kill anyone who resisted. The cartel's reputation was at stake, and Cruz wouldn't leave until he had restored his dominance. Dante Vargas sat in one of the rear SUVs, still uneasy about the plan. He had voiced his concerns to Cruz, but the cartel leader's mind was set. Dante knew that Turner had prepared for this, and he feared they were walking into another trap. Still, he had no choice but to follow orders. "Eyes open," Dante warned his team over the radio. "Turner will have something waiting for us." The convoy approached the outskirts of town, moving cautiously as they entered Iron Ridge's perimeter. The silence unsettled many of the enforcers. They had expected gunfire, or at least some sign of resistance. Instead, the streets were deserted, the windows of buildings dark and lifeless. "They've run," one lieutenant said with a grin. "They know we're coming." Dante frowned. "Don't be stupid. This is a setup." Hidden in defensive positions across town, the people of Iron Ridge waited for Jack's command. Walter Shepard's team monitored the eastern road, while Mason Clark's snipers had high vantage points overlooking the square. Emma was stationed in the underground command bunker with a team of radio operators coordinating movements across the town. Jack whispered into his radio, "Phase 1. Let them get deeper inside." Blitz barked softly, signaling the beginning of the operation. From the shadows, he led a small group of dogs that silently maneuvered through side streets, herding the cartel's scouts into isolated alleys and blind spots. Rusty mirrored the maneuver on the western flank. The convoy halted near the central square. Cruz climbed out of his armored vehicle and surveyed the area. "Spread out. Search the buildings." The enforcers moved in squads, kicking down doors and checking empty homes and storefronts. Every step they took brought them closer to Jack's carefully laid traps. "Phase 2, Jack said over the radio. Explosions erupted on the perimeter, disabling 2 of the cartel's vehicles. Panic spread among the enforcers as hidden spike strips shredded tires and controlled blasts cut off their escape routes. The floodlights activated next, illuminating the entire square. "Contact north," someone shouted, but no enemy could be seen. The defenders remained hidden, using the chaos to their advantage. Walter's team triggered the next wave of traps. Steel barriers rose from the streets, forcing the cartel into narrow corridors. Mason's snipers fired warning shots, taking out communication equipment but avoiding direct casualties. Cruz shouted into his radio, "Get those damn lights down. Push forward." His enforcers scrambled to regain control, but Jack's psychological tactics were taking effect. Confusion and fear spread like wildfire. The sound of barking echoed through the alleys, disorienting the attackers as Blitz and Rusty led their teams in coordinated strikes. Dante Vargas kept his head despite the chaos. He recognized Turner's strategy: control the battlefield without engaging directly. Dante rallied a group of enforcers and broke away from the convoy to flank the defenders. As he moved through the alleys, Blitz suddenly appeared in front of him, growling low and blocking the path. "Clever dog," Dante muttered, raising his weapon, but Blitz didn't charge. Instead, he retreated, leading Dante into a series of interconnected side streets. Dante realized too late that he was being funneled toward an ambush point. Jack stepped out of the shadows, weapon in hand. "Drop it, Dante." Dante hesitated, but knew he had no way out. He slowly lowered his weapon and raised his hands. "I told Cruz this would happen," Dante said calmly. "He didn't listen." "Doesn't matter now," Jack replied. "Your men are trapped. Surrender and tell them to stand down." "You think surrendering is that easy? Cruz will kill me for this." "Cruz won't have the chance," Jack promised. "This ends tonight." The battle intensified as Cruz's remaining forces tried to regroup. Emma coordinated the defenders from the command bunker, ensuring that each team stayed in communication. Despite the pressure, the townsfolk held their ground, refusing to give an inch. "They're breaking," Mason reported over the radio. "They're trying to pull back south." Jack activated the final phase of his plan: cut off their retreat. Border Patrol agents led by Alex Ramirez moved in from the outskirts, blocking the main escape routes. Walter's team reinforced the perimeter, using vehicles to create roadblocks. Cruz, realizing he was outmaneuvered, shouted in frustration, "Fall back! Get to the vehicles!" But it was too late. Blitz and Rusty led a final charge, driving the remaining enforcers into containment zones. The cartel's firepower meant little in the maze of fortified streets and hidden defenses. Jack confronted Cruz in the square. The cartel leader stood defiant, his eyes blazing with fury. "You think this changes anything?" Cruz spat. "There's always someone willing to take my place." "Not here," Jack said. "Not anymore." Cruz raised his weapon, but Jack fired first, knocking the gun from his hand. Blitz growled, stepping forward to ensure Cruz didn't try anything else. "It's over," Jack declared. "You've lost." Cruz was taken into custody as federal agents arrived to secure the town. The cartel's forces had been neutralized, their leadership dismantled. As dawn broke over Iron Ridge, the town stood victorious. Families emerged from the tunnels, embracing one another and celebrating their hard-earned triumph. For the first time in years, they felt truly free. Emma found Jack near the command post, where he was checking on Blitz and Rusty. "We did it," she said softly. Jack nodded. "Yeah, we did." Walter joined them with a grin. "You know, Jack, I think you just gave the Scorpions a lesson they won't forget." "It wasn't just me," Jack replied. "It was all of us." The victory at Iron Ridge became a turning point. Word spread across the region, inspiring other towns to stand up to the cartel. The network Jack had built grew stronger as communities united to protect their homes and families. Later that evening, a community gathering was held in the town square. People shared stories of courage and resilience, and Jack was honored as the man who had led them through the storm. But Jack remained humble, giving credit to the entire town for their bravery and determination. Emma stood beside him, raising a toast to Iron Ridge and to the future we're building together. The crowd cheered, and Jack allowed himself a rare smile. The battle was over, but the work of rebuilding and protecting their community had just begun. Shadowed by Blitz and Rusty, Jack Turner knew one thing for certain. As long as they stood together, Iron Ridge would never fall again.